Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us again for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show on the 5th of April, 2021. Up first, hazardous weather graphics. For a change, there is nothing illuminated on here. There are no watches, warnings, or advisories anywhere around the state for the next 24 hours at least. Maybe something might come out here for St. Lawrence Island. I noticed Gamble or Savunga had winds gusting 35 miles an hour out of the east. They're down to a half a mile visibility in snow. So it's kind of touch and go there, but that's not expected to last all that long. And for satellite imagery, you can see the clouds associated with the snow that's actually pushing onto the southwest coast with winds kicking up about 35 miles an hour. Kipnuk had being peak gusts last hour of about 32 miles an hour or so, and 15 to 25 mile an hour winds increasing there over the southwest interior, and then the stronger winds St. Lawrence Island. And the Pribilofs, were southwest just under 40 miles an hour. St. George, peak wind gusts 37 miles an hour at the low center just west of St. Matthew Island, and the front extending with the clouds there across the southern Bering Sea into the western Aleutians. And basically just kind of a mostly cloudy day for the central and eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula. Good clearing over the interior. From, as you can see, Kodiak Island, even the Alaska Peninsula there, Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, right up into the interior. A lot of clear skies actually up in toward the Brooks Range. And the Panhandle, some rain turning to showers, especially up in the north. More showery rain. Yakutat in the last 12 hours, Yakutat picking up about 0.13 of an inch of precipitation, while Sitka had about 0.6 of an inch of rain. Otherwise, Petersburg, 0.3 of an inch, and everywhere else had was a lot less. I think only 0.07, for example, at Juneau, and even lighter amounts down toward Annette and Ketchikan. Otherwise, some high pressure building eastward, and that kicked the wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour out of the north at Seward today. As you can see, high pressure in over the western interior, and then the low there in the northeast Gulf. And the gradient between the two made for kind of a breezy day. Again, Kodiak Island, also 35 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts there. And those starting to come down already as the high ridge axis shifts eastward. And there's the snow and blowing snow on the increase there in the southwest coast, with the front trailing back and the rain into the western Aleutians. Areas of light snow, maybe a couple inches or 1 to 2 inches in areas mostly north of Fairbanks there, and then lighter amounts into the central interior with an area of light snow and showers with the upper level trough. And for tonight, that kind of continues up that way, say just north of Fairbanks up into the northeast interior. Light snow showers, not much accumulation, and some flurries and fog anywhere along the Arctic coast possible, but clear over the interior and kind of cool again tonight, especially for April. Some areas are dropping below zero once again, and showers. So the Panhandle, snow moves into the western interior, trying to get into the Kuskokwim Valley and northern Bristol Bay, and mixed precipitation or just rain for the Alaska Peninsula to just south of the Pribilofs, but the Aleutians basically dry, with the exception being Shimei and Attu. And then for tomorrow, Shimei Attu, weak front, light rain there, but partly mostly sunny from Amchitka Island eastward all the way to the Alaska Peninsula, maybe a few rain and snow showers. Mostly clear over the central western interior, some lingering snow showers and a weak low off the southwest coast, and the thing up in the northeast there bringing some light snow shower activity once again, and rain and snow on the light side though for the Panhandle, and it'll be rain at sea level. And then for Wednesday, a much stronger system comes into the moves into Kuskokwim Bay, the center of which, with about 1,002 millibars there, and then with that 1,043 millibar Arctic high over the Russian Far East and the western Bering, actually ridging right down into the central Aleutians. Pretty tight gradient pressure field there, especially on the western and northwest quadrant of that system. So it looks like good northeast winds. That's possible gusts 50 miles an hour, definitely gale force gradient there coming down across the Pribilof Islands, and then kind of spreads out a little, especially behind the front for the Alaska Peninsula. Rain and snow in the south. Snow, possible blowing snow, southern Yukon Delta coast into the Kuskokwim Mountains, and snow on the increase southern Cook Inlet with a band of snow showers northward along that trough axis all the way to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast across the eastern Brooks Range. And the eastern interior dry to mostly sunny there from the 40-mile country down into the North Gulf Coast and the north coast of the Panhandle, with showers over the central and southern Panhandle. And for the lows tonight, mid-30s for the southeast coast, and again, down maybe a little below zero for the Susitna Valley. Once again, here in April, Copper River Basin, northern Kuskokwim Valley, a little below zero with single numbers for Kenai Peninsula, Anchorage, teens for Kachemak Bay. And for the interior, 5 to 20 below, with a 5 below around Fairbanks, and then 20 to 25 below for the Brooks Range and north slope to the Arctic coast, below zero St. Lawrence Island, and near freezing for the Pribilofs, mid to upper 30s though for the Aleutians, lower to mid 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, and 15 to 20 for Bristol Bay. Highs tomorrow, near 40 for Kodiak, and lower 20s Copper River Basin, 25 to 30 for south central Alaska, Panhandle upper 30s, lower 40s, near 30 for Bristol Bay, lower to mid-teens for your highs up in the central interior area, Tanana Valley, and lower teens for the Nome area with temperatures below zero. Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, about 5 below for the highs, and mid-30s for the Pribilofs, lower to mid-40s central Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula. And then the lows following morning, again, below zero for the Susitna Valley, possibly the Kenai Peninsula, and more likely the Copper River Basin, northern Kuskokwim Valley, upper 20s Kodiak Island, upper 20s, lower 30s for the Panhandle, and the interior, pretty well below zero, 10 to 25 below there, and then near 30 for the Pribilofs.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to flying weather, we've got IFR, Arctic coast, north slope to the Brooks Range, and then south of the mountains there, all the way down to the Yukon River around Eagle. And then VFR, central interior southwards, you can see from the Kuskokwim Valley eastward into the central Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula. Marginal VFR, Kodiak Island, some IFR there on the southwest portion of the island. IFR with the moisture from Norton Sound down across Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, southern Kuskokwim Valley, Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula to just near or to the northeast part of Unalaska Island, then a band from the Pribilofs westward. VFR from Amchitka Island eastward to Atka. And the Panhandle, marginal VFR mostly, but some IFR up in the north, including Yakutat. And then IFR pretty solid there for the southeast coast tomorrow afternoon. Marginal VFR extends back toward Cape St. Elias or so, but VFR, Kuskokwim Valley, Lake Iliamna, Kodiak Island, south central Alaska, Copper River Basin, and central interior there. And then from about, the Koyukuk Valley westward to the northwest coast, Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, marginal VFR and IFR for the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. And then for Wednesday morning, IFR for the North Slope and Arctic coast, marginal VFR southward to the central Seward Peninsula area, in across the Kobuk, Selawik Valley, Kotzebue, and Koyukuk Valley kind of marginal with marginal VFR for the Yukon Flats, and some marginal VFR there over the central interior, surrounded by an area of VFR down to the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, and then a split area of IFR with that next system there over the central and eastern Bering Sea, pushing in across Nunivak Island and to Kuskokwim Bay, and from the Pribilofs southward across the western Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians to Atka, VFR behind that system, and then looks like IFR for the about 3/4 of the Panhandle with the marginal VFR, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area, Yakutat VFR. And then for Wednesday afternoon, marginal VFR there for Yakutat and the entire southeast coast, VFR in northern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, southeast quarter of the state, and then mid-Yukon River Valley looks good to the lower valley, and the northern delta to southern Seward Peninsula, VFR St. Lawrence Island, but IFR there across much of the southwest interior, as you can see into at least a good portion of the Kuskokwim Valley, and then down across Kodiak Island, also for the North Slope and Arctic coast, and then a band of VFR, Aleutians, not too shabby there, even the Alaska Peninsula, Western Peninsula, all the way out to Shimi and Attu, looks pretty good. And then for the passes, tomorrow, Anatuvik, IFR possible in the northern entrance, same pattern and forecast for Adigan as well, lowest conditions northern approach, Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow, VFR for rainy, windy, same forecast, Isabel, VFR, Mintasta, VFR, Tanita, VFR, and Portage as well. But Chilcoot and White, different story. Looks like it'll be solid IFR the entire day. And for the freezing levels there, pretty good gradient now over the southern Bering Sea with 2,000 feet, which is just south of the Pribilof, surface south of St. Matthew Island. We see 10,000 feet up into the central Aleutian areas, and then 2,000 feet there just southern Queen Charlotte Islands. And for icing, some mixed icing, possibly isolated moderate mixed icing, otherwise light there for the Panhandle, except maybe down toward Stewart and Hyder, maybe just a risk of something that's considerable moderate. Otherwise, out west, just some elevated threats. Nothing significant there with those that weak system out Chimianatu, maybe Adak with some moisture sliding northeastward. And the jet stream, 130 knots there just off the Yukon Delta coast from the northwest, increases to 155 knots there over the western Gulf of Alaska. And at 9,000 feet, we've got 50 to 75 knot winds coming up and over a ridge south of the eastern Aleutians. And for the 3,000 foot winds, we're looking at low pressure western Bering Sea, so not all that strong, 35 to 45 knots there from western Aleutians, and then lighter winds over the interior, pretty light, and even the Panhandle looking at light wind conditions with maybe the western Arctic coast could see 20 knots out of the west-northwest, Alaska Peninsula maybe 20 to 30 knots out of the northwest. Moving on to turbulence, pretty smooth over much of interior Alaska, maybe some considerable moderate chop on the lee side or south side of the Alaska Peninsula there, and just light to isolated moderate chop for the Fox Islands, Kodiak Island, up into Kachemak Bay. After the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Here at the end of the Earth, it still feels like a place for raw exploration and adventure. It's vast in all directions and ground zero for some of the biggest questions we have about the climate. But when we decided to make a series about the frozen places on Earth, we knew there would be one hurdle we would need to jump over first. What is the cryosphere?
The what?
Ooh.
I have no idea.
While I'm aware of the cryosphere, I don't actually know what it is.
It has something to do with ice. All right, that's all I got.
How do you get people acquainted with the cryosphere when most of us don't even know what it is?
Hey, so here we are in Washington, D.C., standing on the roof of NASA headquarters. That's the Capitol building right behind me. And what headquarters does is kind of serve as the focal point to connect the dots.
That's Dr. Tom Wagner, NASA's cryospheric program scientist at headquarters. In short, Tom is responsible for making sure NASA knows what the current status of the cryosphere is.
The cryosphere is everything from the snow that falls by your house to the icy reaches of the Himalayas, to the big ice sheets of Antarctica all the way at the South Pole, and also the frozen ground of the Arctic, and even some of that frozen ground that's currently under the ocean.
If you had to break it down, you'd have a mix of sea ice, snow cover, permafrost, ice sheets, and glaciers.
Right now, our best predictions are that sea levels will rise anywhere from 1 to 3 feet within the next 100 years. 3 feet of sea level rise has the potential to displace about 100 million people, which is a lot of people that need to find new homes.
Our current reality places us at a near tipping point, and the cryosphere is playing a huge part in that delicate balance.
So one of the things people don't know about NASA is that we study the Earth, and we've been doing that since NASA's inception back in the 1950s. And we study the frozen part of the Earth in a variety of ways.
Missions like SNOWX, Airborne Snow Observatory, Oceans Melting Greenland, Operation Icebridge, Arctic Boreal Vulnerability Experiment, and countless other labs and individual researchers stand at the forefront of monitoring the cryosphere. But this year was a particularly big year.
3
2, 1, and liftoff of Grace Follow-On, continuing the legacy of the Grace mission of tracking the movement of water across our planet.
2 state-of-the-art satellite missions are being launched in a single year as part of a major attempt to understand Earth's frozen places. Our scientists are answering hard questions, sharing stories from the field, and giving their best predictions for what we can expect of a warming world. We're taking you with us as we follow NASA explorers on their journey to the frozen ends of the Earth as they study our rapidly changing world from satellites, planes, and boots on the ground.
What we can do really well from orbit is we can tell when a surface of land is covered in snow. What's tricky is though, how thick is that snow? And it's even trickier how much water is in that snow.
What we think of snow depends a lot on where it falls. If you live in the eastern US, maybe it's fun. Or maybe it's just a pain.
But if you live in parts of the world where they depend on the water that's in the snow for a large fraction of their total water that they use for drinking, for agriculture, for industry, or for hydropower, the snow is a very important natural resource. For example, in the western part of the United States, 80 to 90% of their renewable water comes from snow.
Snow is one part of the cryosphere that many of us have actually encountered before, but it also plays a critical role in regulating the Earth's climate. Through decades of remote sensing, NASA has kept a close eye on the ebb and flow of snow cover.
We now have a 52-year record of snow cover in the Northern Hemisphere, and we can see changes in the extent of snow cover over the time period, particularly in the last few decades, where we can see that the snow cover has been retreating. It's been melting a lot earlier in the springtime.
The extent is relatively easy to do, and it has been done over the years. What's tricky is though, how thick is that snow? And it's even trickier how much water is in that snow.
That tricky part is known as the snow-water equivalent, or how much water would actually be in a layer of snow if it melted. NASA and its partners have taken to the air to help solve this elusive mystery. First, there's the Airborne Snow Observatory, or ASO, a small plane outfitted with a couple of instruments, one of which measures snow depth using LiDAR. LiDAR measures distance using light from lasers. Since 2014, ASO has flown over basins in California and Colorado, taking before and after looks at snow depth. Scientists subtract the snow-free summer data from the snow-on winter data to get an idea of the snow depth. There's no single way to measure all types of snow across the globe, and so NASA's other airborne campaign, AKwx, is testing different combinations of sensors. This winter, AKwx will test a new instrument, the Snow-Water Equivalent Synthetic Aperture Radar and Radiometer, or SWISAR.
SWISAR consists of 2 main components, one of them being the radar and the second one being the radiometer.
So with the radar providing the depth of the snow and the radiometer providing the density of the snow, we could put those 2 things together and get the snow water equivalent. Here in the chamber, we're going to measure different radiation patterns at our different frequencies and do some full system testing in this chamber. This chamber kind of enables us to isolate various types of radiation and interference. And in about a month, we're going to take the instrument, mount it on a Twin Otter in the Grand Mesa in Colorado, and we're going to fly it over the Grand Mesa and take various different measurements. This is what we call our engineering flight.
Making sure the sensors are calibrated is key in order to face the challenges nature will throw at them.
Half of the area that gets covered by snow every winter contains trees and forest. and the trees make it difficult for the sensors to see the snow that's underneath the trees, so it makes it difficult for us to measure how much snow there is. After the snow's had a chance to sit on the ground for a while, it gets denser and denser and denser over time, and it changes, which is another reason why snow is very challenging to remotely sense. It doesn't stay the same, it's constantly changing. One of the things that we often do in the field is go dig what we call a snow pit. We literally dig a pit in the snow so we can see all the different layers. The layering is very important.
All this digging is part of ground truthing SNOWX, a way of matching up what the airborne instruments see and what is actually sitting on the surface. The ultimate goal of SNOWX is to figure out what the best combination of instruments would be for a future satellite mission in order to get a global picture of snow.
We need to know how much snow is in a snowpack, because if we have too much snow and the snow melts too fast, then you can get flooding. And if you don't have enough snow, or if the snow melts too early, that can lead to a longer wildfire season, a more intense drought, and we need to know these things for water resource planning.
After we had a record that was about 15-20 years long, we started noticing that the extent of the ice in the Arctic was getting smaller over time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis today. Continue slow thaw there in Bristol Bay with less of the heavier ice. It seems like with each passing day. In Cook Inlet, a noticeable loss of ice from yesterday, especially since Friday, and just about none left now in Kamishak Bay. And not much change here along the ice edge across the Bering Sea. The heavier ice still on the north side of St. Matthew Island. And that's about it. So moving on to the coastal water forecast, west winds 15 to maybe 20 knots along the entire stretch of the coast out there on the outer coastline, sea 7 to 8 feet. Inside waters, south winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet from Dixon Entrance all the way up to Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay. Wednesday, north 25 for Lynn Canal with building pressure over the Yukon there. That'll create some small craft advisory level winds, maybe some higher gust, seas 5 feet. North at 15 for Stevens Passage and 3-foot seas with southeast winds at 10 knots for the Clarence Strait area, seas running about 2 feet. And then small craft advisories on the south coast, southwest 25, seas around 10 feet. And then southeast 25 on the north coast there with 6-foot seas. Prince William Sound, northerlies at 20 knots, seas 3 feet, north winds 20 blowing across Middleton Island and seas at 6 feet, and actually the entire North Gulf coastline at a 20-knot northerlies. Small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, northwest at 25 knots, seas 8 feet, southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, north winds 20 knots, 5-foot seas, and northeast at 10 with 2-foot seas for northern Cook Inlet. Wednesday, northeast 10 for the northern Cook Inlet area, south of the Forelands, winds will be north at 20 knots. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay, northerlies 25 knots. Barren Islands, northwest 20, seas 7 feet. North Gulf Coast, northerlies. Well, North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound, winds will be out of the north at 15 to 20 knots with 2 to 5-foot seas. And for Kodiak Island, northwest 25 knots, and then west 25 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. Bering Sea side of the peninsula, also from Cape Sarichef to Sitkinak, Bristol Bay, west winds at 20. And then also swing around to the southeast at 25 knots with seas building to 7 feet there for Bristol Bay. Gale warnings for the Alaska Peninsula with 40-knot gales out of the southwest on the Bering Sea side, south side 35 knots, which will extend from Cape Sarichef to Sitkinak for 35 knots out of the southwest. And then Kodiak Island, westerlies 15 to 25. And for Unalaska Island, west winds 25 knots. Unmak Island, southwest 25. Adak south to southwest 25 knots. And then from Amchitka to Shimianatu, southwest 25 with seas 9 to 11 feet. And for Wednesday, northeast 25-knot winds there for Shimianatu and Kiska Island. And then Amchitka Island looking northerly at about 20. Then back to small craft advisories for the Adak-Atka area for northwest at 25. Winds increase as you head east, Woodmac Island, west winds 30 knots, 8 to 12 foot seas, and then 45 knot westerlies there on the north side of Unalaska Island with seas just under 20 feet. Pribilofs and the Kuskokwim Delta coast tomorrow, west 15 knots. Yukon Delta coast, northwest at 20, northeast 25. St. Matthew Island, St. Lawrence Island, north at 20. And for Wednesday, St. Lawrence Island, brisk wind advisories are back with northerlies at 25 knots and good gales, 40 knot winds for the Yukon Delta coast out of the northeast, 40 knots for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, south of Nunivak Island, northeast 40 for St. Matthew Island, and west 45 knots with that tight gradient around that low center for the Pribilof Island, seas just under 20 feet. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west-southwest 10 to 15, and the central and west side all the way down to Cape Thompson, west winds at 10 knots, and then Cape Thompson to Wales, northwest at 10. And then northwest winds from Wales to Cape Beaufort at 15 knots, western Arctic coast west 15, central coast northwest at 10, and west-southwest at 10 knots for the eastern stretch of the Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight, maybe a few flurries up that way, anywhere along the Arctic coast up there to probably not so much for the north slope, and then mostly clear under the high pressure there from the northwest there all the way down Kodiak Island, south central Alaska, Prince William Sound into the Gulf, and then snow slowly pushing eastward, but that system weakening as it moves in, but periods of snow that'll extend from the southern Seward Peninsula into northern Bristol Bay if the temperatures are low enough, otherwise mixed precipitation along the vernal boundary, and showers of mostly rain, snow at higher elevations for the Panhandle, and some light snow showers with a thing up there over the northeast. And that holds in place tomorrow, just some scattered isolated snow showers, and then the big storm comes into the southwest.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.